Do games actually influence our real-world actions, and to what extent do they shape our experiences? For many years, experts have agreed that film and literature can play a pivotal role in shaping your behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes. But what about video games? Unlike books, film, and television, video games allow you to act on your intuition. The relationship the player has with their character allows you to take on and question some of life's big topics. Video games have a long history of including elements of moral decision-making within their structure, but the role video games play in shaping our moral outlooks is a controversial and contentious one. To find out more about this and what concerns we should have about video games as they quickly evolve and get more realistic, I spoke to Dr. Michael Herron, a doctor in computer science, a man who's an avid gamer and who's also wrote 2 literal papers on morality in video games.
My name's Michael Herron. I work as a computing lecturer at the School of Computing and Digital Media at Robert Gordon University. And I'm interested in the people, the aspects of computing that impact on people. So that would include things like moral lessons, ethical lessons, the accessibility, and essentially just the things that reach beyond the computer screen to the people behind the computer screen. Hyperrealism is a way for us to maybe cathart in a way that we can't in real life, and we want to at least have some sense of a real grounding in what's happening. And on the other hand, sometimes you want just a little bit of a break from how life actually works. So you want to be an Italian plumber with a nice soundtrack and jumping over things. And sometimes you want to be doing Call of Duty and seeing, well, how would I actually behave in these kind of circumstances? Do I have what it takes? I know I don't in real life, but this is an opportunity for me to feel feelings that I wouldn't otherwise get a chance to actually feel. There is a concept in video game studies called the magic circle, and it's the idea that we understand when we're playing a game that we are operating on kind of an awkward way to put it, but a discontinuous moral space. And what that essentially means is that we know the rules in a game are not the same thing as the rules in life. One of the real examples that people tend to draw from this is boxing. You see people in a boxing ring, they're punching each other, and you know it's okay because they're in a boxing ring. So we know that the normal rules of life don't necessarily apply inside the kind of video games that we might play. So when people are dealing with complex moral issues or violence or all these different kinds of things, we understand that it happens differently in a game than it does in real life. But it is nice to be able to just go into a world that has no consequences. Nobody's getting hurt, nobody's getting harmed. All you're doing is basically engaging in a relatively childish act of exploring what happens when nobody can do anything to you. The evidence does suggest that video games can impact on how people feel about things and how they engage with real life beyond that. But they're not by themselves a therapeutic intervention. In comparison to violent video games, violent movies, violent books, violent imagery and songs, is it not just the fact that we're living in a culture that has certain kinds of real life messages that go into it? And video games as an individual medium, it's just a medium. So I do think video games can influence people, but I don't think they can influence people to the extent that they actually change the fundamental personality people have. People say of video games that they are probably the biggest candidate because there is a level of involvement that you have. Media, like movies, music, they're passive. You listen to them, you watch them, you don't actually engage with them. But the magic circle argument comes back in here. You know, it's just the case that people know that the rules don't apply there. Nobody actually gets hurt. Many games have moral choices where you're choosing between a good option or a bad option. One of my favorite examples, and it's from a kind of an older game called Fallout 3, and you get a choice at one point to disarm a nuclear bomb that's in the middle of a settlement, or explode the bomb and kill everybody in it. Now, those kind of choices are supervillain levels of moral engagement. It's not difficult to decide to do this thing or the other thing. Sometimes we are actually genuinely affected by the things that happen and the stories that happen. And there have been a number of circumstances where when particularly bad things have happened inside a game, I've had to stop playing and just take a moment because I've thought, oh, that was terrible, and I can't really, I need to process that. But I've also had occasions where things have happened inside the game and I've been motivated to behave a bit better to people, just because sometimes games operate on an emotional level, and if games are well designed, they are going to essentially reach into your feelings and make you feel things. And essentially all action is driven by feeling. So if you change the way you feel about something, you also change the way you act about something. Every game is essentially a teaching tool. The young of all species play. Lions learn how to hunt by playing hunting games. Cats learn how to hunt by playing hunting games. The basic mechanism of what a game is it's basically an opportunity to learn things. Often you're not learning things that are particularly useful, as in you're learning how to defeat particular kinds of objectives and things. But sometimes in that you're learning some really important life lessons. There are very significant limitations in how good moral systems can be in games, and it's because fundamentally what you have is a game. You could have something like Star Wars where you have the light side choices and the dark side choices, but if the light side choices always give you the best rewards, then your game playing instinct is going to be where you get those rewards. Real life choices are difficult because nobody rewards you for doing the right thing. It's just a case of, oh look, I didn't steal that thing there. Nobody says, well done for not stealing that. It's just, well yeah, that's what it means to be a person in society. And yet games have to reward you for the things that you do, because games are teaching engines, but they're also reward engines. They deal with the pleasure centers of the brain, and the pleasure centers of the brain get activated by getting a constant stream of rewards for the things that you do. Real moral choices are usually difficult because it's not a choice between blowing up a city and not blowing up a city. It's between doing this bad thing and doing this other bad thing and trying to work out what the least bad thing is to do. Very rarely do real moral decisions in life have very clear answers. And games have to have those clear answers, otherwise they don't really work as games. So, take that path, don't take that path. Well, I did that one last time, so I'm going to do this one this time. So you're driven by the game mechanisms as opposed to the actual engagement with the ethical issues.
So after my conversation with Dr. Harron and my own research, I came to the conclusion that video games are just like any other hobby, like a form of escapism, like physical sports. People who do mixed martial arts and boxing are the same as people who game, in a sense that both are finding a fun, safe way to let out any anger, frustration, or negative feelings that they may have. And they're also finding a way to explore the darker side of the mind in a way which doesn't hurt anyone. I realized that although most modern day video games contain moral dilemmas which drive the story, most people just make choices which get them the most points or rewards. We can't equate that to real life moral dilemmas. I think it's foolish to look at games, films, books and television as the source of the problem when they're a mere reflection of the society we live in.